Good evening. I'd like to call the East Greenbush Central School District Board of Education meeting for January 28th, 2026 to order. Attendance, we are all present tonight. Could everybody rise for the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up, we have student council. They're not here tonight. All right, I guess next up, we have a group of students presenting their SUPA project.
Is this the one we're using? I don't even know if I need this. Do I need this? I don't think I need this.
You need it for the people at home. Yeah.
Oh, streaming. Oh. Okay. I am Kelly Sharaw, and I teach participation in government. These are 3 students that were in my Syracuse University SUPA class. And their job is to find what they see as a problem in their society. It can be in their school, in their community, in their state, or even nationally. And these girls found a problem, and they did their presentation, and they wanted to go on and tell you all about the issue because that is how they participate in government, is to make you aware of it. So they're not here for any negative reason. They're here for a positive reason, but they want you to be aware of it. This was not something that I was aware of at all. So I'm going to introduce Molly, and Ava.
Thank you, Mrs. Sharaw. So I'm Molly Simmons, and we wanted to begin to introduce how here at Columbia High School, there is currently an athletic team locker room that is mostly used by the male athletic teams and is not often offered to female sports teams. Many students at Columbia, we found, were not even aware of the existence of this room because it's in the basement. And so there's currently no female equivalent to this. There are 2 gym locker rooms for girls and boys, which are used every day, but there's no athletic equivalent between the 2. And this leads to many female athletes finding struggles or difficulties as a result. We want to make sure that you guys knew that this was built under Michael Leonard in 2004, and it's been a little over 20 years since, and a lot has changed. With the current success of female sports programs, this would be crucial to supporting opportunities for our female athletes. I'm going to turn it over to Molly.
Okay, so the reason we chose this to be the topic of our project is because it is an issue that has affected all 3 of us as student athletes at Columbia High School. So I'm on the flag football team, and our team consists of nearly 30 girls and 3 coaches, and it is oftentimes hard for us to fit in our coach's classroom, which is where we meet before and after games usually, to watch film, debrief our games, and just gather as a team. So the addition of a locker room would give our flag football team and many other athletic teams at Columbia High School the opportunity to have a space to gather like that. Back to us in the classroom, there's often girls sitting on the floor, sitting on desks, sharing chairs even. So it's just generally not enough space. We also put a survey out with our project, and at the end of our survey, we put an open-ended question that asked student athletes if they had also had any struggles with not having a place to gather. And we got nearly 40 responses to the question, in which most student athletes said yes, they did have trouble, as the 3 of us also did. So
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
If you know the answer, and not to pick on the football team, but
Okay.
does the football team have a place to gather?
The boys football team, yeah, the locker room in the basement is where they gather and leave
And
their
that's where they can
equipment.
watch film? and-
Yes, there's a film room in there.
Okay. So ultimately, our goal is for you as a board to consider the addition of another team locker room for female sports programs to make it equal between both genders. We believe that this would ultimately benefit female athletes and the Columbia sports program as a whole. As an alternative to our idea, we believe we could allow a girls' sports team like lacrosse or flag football to potentially try out the locker room in the spring and see if it'd be beneficial to them, which could potentially lead to the addition of a whole one. And that is it. Thank you for your time.
Questions.
So thinking about the use of the locker room, and it might be a better question. Like, what I'm wondering is, how are we defining use? Like when we say like it is predominantly male use, like what was the lens that you used to approach that question?
Yeah, so by use, we kind of mean, for example, the football teams and the lacrosse teams, they all have lockers for each of the players that they can store their equipment. Obviously, football and lacrosse are heavy with equipment, but flag football and girls lacrosse
Got it.
also have equipment, and we just wanted to create
So
equal.
it's not just the room itself, it's also the use of the lock, like the action.
The space, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And you wouldn't feel safe, obviously, because boys can come in there at the same time. You guys can't change in there, right? There's
Yeah, that was one thing we thought about while we were going through this together. We thought about the idea of sharing it, but obviously for like safety and like personal privacy reasons, we think it would be best to create two separate but equal rooms.
One other thing, I mean, look, this whole thing is great for doing this. And
Yeah,
Mr. Harkin being
yeah.
completely honest with his answers was also great.
Mhm.
The thing that I found most disturbing was the 7.5% of people that thought it was fair that the boys had the only.
Yeah.
It was anonymous. I don't know if you know who it is.
No, yeah, they were anonymous. Anonymous.
That was-
Yeah.
I saw that and that just made me like, you know, boy, Yeah.
Where do you change before a game?
The bathroom.
The bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do all the girls change before games?
The bathroom or the gym locker room.
Okay.
Yeah, the gym locker room
Where do all the boys change before a game?
and
Basement locker room or the upstairs locker room.
yeah. And also like a problem with like using the gym locker room is it gets really crowded with other students. The nice thing about the athletic locker room was it would be a space for just athletes instead of having to share it with other students throughout the school day.
So I think it was a great project, and I think it's a great point. I would love to like in the future, if we could develop some thoughts around this information and try to see if we could define, you know, I'd be curious to hear more for sure. You know, but that sounds excellent.
Ladies, thank you, because I know this was not an easy topic to research. I know that you brought a lot of good information forward, and please know that I've already had some great conversations with Mr. Harkin, Mr. Jones, when you sent in your presentation. And you've given us a lot to work on, because listen, fairness and equity is something that we need to focus on. And when these things come to our attention, it requires follow-up. So know that we'll be working together to make sure we can take some appropriate action to see what positive steps we can take as a result of the work that you brought here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along to the approval of the draft minutes for January 14th. Were there any comments or questions? Motion to approve. RP, second. Kathy, all those in favor? Okay. Board forum. What? Oh, yep. And Jesse's abstaining. Sorry. I did have it noted. And board forum.
I just want to say thank you to the young ladies who just presented. That was a great project. And I'm very impressed with all the information that you brought forward. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say that you did a great job, but your slides are really enlightening. So if anybody didn't see it, you go back and look at it. I thought it was great. I also just want to talk about we had the legislative breakfast last week. Thought it was great. Well run by the team. I thought it was just such a great experience. And two things. One, also, it was personally, never been to a UPK program, saw it, thought it was great. Watching the SROs do what they're doing, also, helpful for me to see. But in the meantime, just when I saw some of the folks, our elected officials you look in their eyes and they're looking and they're kind of, they're engaged. And I thought every single thing we did, because we also went to the science research and those kids were just great. But everything about it was great. I'm happy that you did it, and I'm going to be more proud of what we did. So thank you.
I just want to say that thank you to everyone for the hard work at Winterfest and for the pancake breakfast, to all of the activities and the student participation. It was amazing to see. So thank you for that. Yeah, and the Education Foundation for their support of it.
Thank you for your presentation. I think that was wonderful. As someone who has personal experience with that, I think it's a really important issue. So thank you for bringing it here. And I got to see them present that presentation to our class because we're in the same class, and they did so much research on that and very well prepared.
Just echoing Mr. Patache, I just want to send a huge thank you to Dr. Coates, Mrs. Mahar, Mrs. Mulligan for your presentations at the legislative breakfast. And thank you to Mrs. Reamer. I know she was instrumental in coordinating this. And thank you to anyone else who was working on this logistically behind the scenes. It was a point of pride to hear these presentations and for our legislators to hear it. And thank you for all the work that went into that.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to public forum. Residents, students, employees, and business representatives of the East Greenbush Central School District may address the board on matters concerning programs and/or operations of the district, other than matters involving personnel. Members of the board do not directly respond to citizen concerns during the public forum. If a response is appropriate, either the president or superintendent will contact the individual in the near future. Those persons wishing to address the board will be recognized by the chair of the meeting and should state for the record their name and address or affiliation with the district or business. While the board does not wish to infringe on free speech protections, it must be stressed that the visitors forum is not deemed to be an open forum. The board president will conduct the forum for the orderly and efficient operation of board business. In addition, any remarks which may be considered defamatory or stigmatizing are prohibited and will be declared out of order. All comment shall be limited to 5 minutes. Doesn't sound like we have anybody tonight. Okay, so moving to the capital project update.
So going to welcome our friends from Turner and Labella here tonight. We are excited that we are getting close to moving forward with phase 2 of the capital improvement project. And I will turn the presentation over to Ms. Mulligan and our partners at Labella and Turner.
Thank you. So tonight we have Patty. Patty is new with the Turner team, not new to Turner, but new to our capital project. So Patty, welcome. She's overseeing the construction management side at Turner. And then we have Devin from Labella Architects. So I'll turn it right over to you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us here today. So we're going to give you an update on our project for the month of December. So we have completed the installation of the underground storm tech system and the associated piping. The installation of the storm pipe from the existing catch basin to the new retention pond. The installation of the new sports lighting poles has also been completed, and the contractors have stabilized for the winter shutdown. They did all the SWIP measures and got everything ready, assuming that they were going to shut down for the winter season. But then they just let us know this week that they have been able to get some more material. Some of the catch basins are actually ready, so they may actually continue next week, assuming that they are able to get some of the snow removed and out of the way. So although they have stabilized, they just might be back. This is the phase 2 construction schedule that was part of the bid documents. So this is just capturing that work that will be upcoming. The most critical work that will start right away is the Goff Library renovation and the Red Mill sanitary pipe replacement work. So we are already starting to prep for that work right now. We're starting to schedule those meetings with the stakeholders at both of those buildings. We'll be starting as soon as next week, meeting with folks at those buildings to prep and give logistics plans and work through those challenges that we'll be facing so we can start that right away in February. Change order contingency summary. So during the month of December, we only had the one change order, which was a credit, which is always great. We love to start out a project with a credit. That was nice. So contingency actually increased. The construction budget summary. This is just capturing where we stand so far with our project and all the contracts that have been awarded so far, which I know Jen will get into further detail when we get to the next slides.
Thank you, Patty. So the budget status reports is as of December 31st. So the reports that you are looking at do not include the actual contract awards that were made at the last meeting because that occurred in January. We are in the process of getting those contracts executed and those purchase orders issued. So you will see updates in the January and February reports as that comes in. But as of December 31st, not a lot of change since November. We continue to close out phase 1A, which was the Columbia High School roof and the tennis and basketball courts. And phase 1B that Patty just gave an overview of where we're at with the sports lighting in the back of golf and the fields back there. So that work is really just started. So there hasn't been a whole lot of payments that have gone out to date. And then obviously phase 2, those contracts were just awarded, and phase 3 through 5 are on the design phase. And then the
When we
next
say
slide.
closeout, what does that process look like exactly? Like just like
Yeah, so closeout can mean a variety of things. So likely construction is substantially complete. That happened back in October, November timeframe. There could be punch lists going on. There could be final payments being processed. That's where we're at as of the end of December and into January is final payments, retainages being released to the contractors. The other piece is also getting ready to file the final cost reports to SED. So that's what we mean close out. Like when it's completely closed, that means we don't need to touch phase 1A anymore. Everything is in to SED, and building aid computations will be finalized and building aid will start flowing in the near future, depending on the time of year that is filed.
I have another question. Sorry. The last slide had a red. So what is over budget?
Oh, so can you back up?
Yeah.
To that. So this is at the last meeting when the phase 2 for Red Mill and Goff, those contracts were awarded. We talked about how the Red Mill sanitary sewer was an added scope to the project.
Yeah.
And that was estimated at around $425,000. So the budget tracked fairly positively from the standpoint of being able to add that additional scope. So one of the things that at the last meeting, we talked about that there will have to be some budget transfers between the construction, site work, and we're going to be able to capitalize off of that from the savings in phase 1A and 1B.
And Ms. Mulligan, if I'm not mistaken, we did provide for the board the full budget detail on your executive pack, which would give you more information where that money would come from.
Okay. It's just hard for me to figure that out on that slide.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Thank you. Thank you.
And just the last slide is just a snippet of the overall project, of the overall budget status. So as of December 31st, there was just under $12 million that was actually spent. There was $17 million in committed contracts that have not been spent, and the remaining budget is at about $87.1 million. And that's as of the end of December. So obviously now phase 2 is awarded. Those numbers will start shifting in the buckets, if you will, between what's actually available in the budget and what has been committed.
Well, since you're in the closeout portion of phase 1A, the unencumbered balance of say 1.37 should remain relatively close to that.
That is very close to representative
Oh,
of
nice.
the remaining
Okay.
budget will be.
Just think conceptually, though, we need to keep in mind we're very early in this project still, and this is the point at which construction will really start to ramp up. So while we're optimistic that the numbers that we have are very positive, when we start to open walls and ceilings and break up floors, this is where you can start to see the numbers shift rapidly. So we are cautiously optimistic right now, but this is where it can change quickly.
And the other point too is overall, the project had an estimated incidental cost of 22%. We knew that these first couple of phases may be light on some of those incidentals because, for example, like now we're getting into the HVAC work, we're going to have commissioning agents. So there will be a rebalancing of some of those items as we progress.
I know we talked about this before. What happens to the libraries when they go under construction?
Can you just
Like,
clarify?
like, are they completely closed or do we move?
So each building has an action plan on how they're going to address library services. So for example, we were talking about the middle school today. I'll call it the stage area, if you will, in the middle school cafeteria. They're going to put up a temporary wall there. I believe Red Mill is going, Mrs. Scalacci, forgive me if I'm wrong, going to library on a cart.
Yes, so our librarian will push into the elementary classrooms and conduct her regular library classes right within the classroom setting, rather than the students coming to her. There will be a limited checkout of some books that will keep on hand, real books for the younger students, but a lot of our checkouts will be electronic. For most of our older kids.
We tried to give a lot of voice to the principals and to the librarians so we could, to the best of our ability, maintain continuity of service. And each one is going to want to do it a little different. And we're trying to accommodate for that.
Thanks. I knew we had talked about it. I couldn't remember. Thank you.
All I had. Thank you. Anybody have any further questions?
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to discussion items, executive budget proposal, state aid.
So before I turn it over to Ms. Mulligan again, as you may be aware, the governor released her proposal during her State of the State address for the executive budget for the new fiscal year. While we were optimistic with what the governor has released, we do need to remember that just like our capital improvement project, we're at the beginning of a process. This still needs to be heavily reconciled with the legislature. I'm sure that given where we stand fiscally in the state, that there will be some different iterations that come between now and the end of the reconciliation of the budget. The biggest thing that our hope is that we have an on-time budget. That makes our process that much easier. And again, Mrs. Mulligan's going to walk us through what we know at this point and the implications for the revenue side of the budget. And even this is incomplete at this point. There are still some numbers that we have to process. We're optimistic. We like what we saw in the governor's proposal. However, there is a long way to go before we can have a clearly defined picture of where we stand with the revenue side, because there are many different steps to finish the budget process between the executive and the legislative branch. So with that,
I have a quick question. Like in times past, like I know like Assemblyman McDonald like would give us like a a feeling of like where the legislature was at, feelings on like the governor's budget as we approach the season. And I'm just wondering, just not that if we have it today, but I'm just wondering if there's any feeling that, like to just have a sense looking forward of.
he's already contacted the district.
Yeah.
Jeannie did
February 20.
the 25th.
25th, yeah.
So he's already promised to come at that meeting to sit face to face and give any updates that are possible.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great. Okay, Mr. Goodwin, could you pull up that summary spreadsheet, that PDF on 8A? Thank you. Okay, so this is the summary. Actually, it provides some information regarding our state aid for the current fiscal year 25-26. There is always a propensity to have some data changes. So that's why this is always dated, January 28th, because this is what we know as of today. So you can see just starting on the left-hand side of the page, we have what the 25-26 district adopted budget was for state aid overall, which was just under $37.9 million. Looking at how that aid is going to flow in for the 25-26 fiscal year, it looks to be about $38.3 million. So we had about just under $500,000 favorable budget variance. We knew about the additional foundation aid that was coming in. So with the late adoption of the state budget last year, there was some additional funds that did end up coming in. So that's what that $200,000 represents on the foundation aid. Moving over to the executive state budget, as Dr. Coates said, this is very early on. This is the governor's proposal. A lot can change. But for our district, based on the data that we submitted and what is in the governor's proposal, it is in the proposal that we'd be receiving $27.3 million, which is a 4.1% increase. So as Dr. Coates said, that looks nice. And so with that, because our 25-26 budget was slightly lower than where we actually came in, there's a possibility that our foundation aid in the 26-27 budget may have a little bit more than that if everything holds true. And stays in that manner. When we get to the expense-based aids, this is where it really involves a very close review. Okay,
Are you saying that our projections like last year was under like where if today held, like if today's picture like holds all the way through the set like legislative session that we was projecting less in revenue?
So a couple of different things. So looking at the current year,
Yes.
25-26,
Yep.
our budget was $26.1 million.
Yep.
Or where things are actually falling based on the final state approved budget, we'll be receiving a couple $100,000 more than what we had budgeted.
Got
So we have a favorable budget variance there.
Okay.
From there,
Yeah.
we now are looking forward to 26-27 and what is included in the governor's executive budget proposal, which is 27, just under $27.4 million.
Yeah.
That is a 4.1% increase
Yeah.
over what we're currently expecting to receive in
Got it.
25-26.
Thank you.
Okay, does that help?
That
answer
helps,
the
yeah, for
question?
sure.
Okay. So overall, it looks like we could end up receiving about from budget to budget about $1.2 million more if everything stays what is in the governor's executive proposal. Moving on, below that is the expense-based aids. This does require a close review. There are certain assumptions, just data that's built into the systems that need to be reviewed. So for example, like transportation aid, we really need to look how we're progressing and how we're spending. A lot of things could change. We have some vacancies, we filled some positions. So what was included in the database may not be really reflective of what our current trends are. So we'll take a look at that and update those projections and use what we know, not necessarily what is in the SCD databases.
Can I ask, sorry,
Mhm.
the expense-based aids, those are based on I guess, in the executive budget. So those things change on a percentage basis?
It's based on like what our spending is. So
So
for
it's more
example,
our spending,
Yes.
not the governor changing a percentage?
correct.
Okay.
So we have aid ratios, approved aid ratios.
Okay,
So
that's-
for example, like building aid, our aid ratio is 72.1%. It's based on our final cost reports and approved projects. So depending on what the timing of that is and how those go in is how those aid projections look. So we could have a different number that we budgeted based on how we're filing our final cost reports and how we want to handle that based on our tax neutral project and balancing that out with our debt service payments.
So it's probably important we make one caveat there. So what Mrs. Mulligan just explained was when you see the runs that the governor puts out, that's based on our spending. The only caveat, there have been times in fiscal cycles in the past, based on the funding formulas for those use-based aids, that there have been both legislative and executive proposals that have adjusted those formulas
Mhm.
that could
Yeah.
potentially impact the money that we're
At budget time?
correct.
Yeah, so, right, twofold.
It's-
It's based on our actual, what's happening in the district, and then also what's happening
Legislatively.
legislatively.
Right.
So there could be, there's lots of variables that could change.
And use-based aids have been a bone of contention in both legislative and executive budget proposals in the past. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, just like transportation aid, what's our current spending looking like? Because what we spend this year will be next year's aid. So if we put in there, for example, what our entire budget is for the transportation department, we may not spend the full budget of the transportation department. So if we put that in there, then we'd be overestimating aid that we may not receive.
Okay.
So those are the types of things that we want to look at and make sure we're projecting. And you can look at just even 25-26, how those aligned pretty much, based on the approach versus if you went back and looked at those executive budget proposals last year you may see very different numbers, but based on where we budgeted and where things are coming in, they're very reasonable.
I'm just, so I know like 2 years ago, we had like a historic budget, like ever, right? And what I'm wondering is like in last year, it was a bit tighter. It was substantially tighter, right? And it went up a little bit, but we were like very fortunate that it went up at all, right? Like it was a different environment. Reason why I'm bringing that up is just because thinking forward, right? And I know legislatively there's been caution. I think the governor has issued caution around current budget figures. And I'm just thinking, so I'm just wondering, looking forward, not necessarily for this meeting, but I'm just curious about what is our financial stance look like? How do we approach cautiously optimistic, recognizing that it could be better than expected, in the coming year, but also ensuring that, we're leveraging for a tougher legislative environment in the future kind of thing. So I'm just curious,
So I think one of the things that we have to track very carefully is from the legislative level. 2 years ago now, the governor had commissioned a study under the Rockefeller Institute looking at the foundation aid formula. This governor has been very clear, and she hasn't repeated it as much this year, that she is concerned about paying for empty seats in schools. One of the things that you will see across the board, I think the number was somewhere in the realm of about 68% of school districts are now on what they call the hold harmless formula. So if they were on formula, essentially they'd have their aid reduced. They'd be looking at their enrollment declines and they would be receiving less aid than they received in previous years. But the governor has acknowledged that more is being asked of public schools, that there's more resources that are being tapped from the public schools, universal free meals, special education challenges, transportation challenge, homelessness, she acknowledges that. So there's a guaranteed 1% increase in the governor's proposal this year for all schools as a bare minimum. To your point, where do we head from here, depending on the state's fiscal outlook, that could change in any given year. One of the greatest attributes for East Greenbush right now is our enrollment.
Yeah.
Our enrollment projections are headed, we have an upward trajectory, at least for, I think, the next 2 to 3 years, if memory serves me from the last enrollment report that we looked at. When that happens, even sans paribus, everything else stays constant. The way the formula is written right now, that would bode in our favor. That would mean that we would see increases with that foundation aid. Now, there's many, if you read the entire Rockefeller report, there's many different components of that report that the legislators are asking each and every year, what is going to happen legislatively with these. This year, the governor is taking no action on those. It doesn't mean that the legislature couldn't come out and handpick one thing that they want to see funded differently from that report. But right now, the governor has selected nothing. So to your point, there's many different facets of this we need to watch very carefully. It's no hidden secret. 75 to 80% of our budget is personnel. That's the piece that we have to watch closely. But when you have a population that's increasing, there's really only so much you can pull back on when you have a student population that you have to serve.
I think as a follow-up to that, are there specific federal actions that you're tracking or that would significantly influence the governor's budget, related to education? I don't know. I mean, obviously there's a lot going on with Department of Education, but.
So one of the biggest things that has been talked about legislatively are the potential Medicaid reductions that have happened, because the two biggest buckets, if you will, that come from the federal government to fund public utilities in the state is education and Medicaid. Right now, it seems to have come to somewhat of a stalemate, that the reductions that have been made are done. Could there be something that is going to happen in the future? Yes. The other piece that was unexpected is the tax receipts for the state for the fiscal year are up further than the governor had expected. She spoke about that at the State of the State, which gave her a little bit more stability under her feet as she planned this budget. There's a lot of uncertainty coming from the federal level, but those are the two biggest pieces that we watch very closely. Department of Education. I hate to be flippant. It's anybody's guess at what's going on in Washington right now.
I would just make a comment to that. Historically, my experience has been that the governors have been more strict in their proposals, and the legislature have restored a lot of things in the past, especially during the Cuomo years. We saw a lot of very small increases and a lot of restoration. You know, John would always come to meetings, McDonald, North Assemblyman, and talk about what they were doing and the different conversations. And the whole harmless, if they're getting an increase of 1%, that bodes well, I mean, from a selection year. So, you know, a lot of positives here. I mean, I think we need to be conservative, but I think if that goes down,
Yeah, I'd be surprised too.
yeah, because there's a lot of factors that in the past have shifted.
Yeah, it tends to go.
The only thing in the political lens to keep in mind, because there is politics behind this, the governor is being primary in her own party. So
The other challenges too, if any major federal entitlements get pulled back in the meantime. So there's an intense federal scrutiny right now. And any loss of federal revenue would be critical to, yeah.
And the one thing that this governor has been applauded for is she has built a hefty reserve. I think reserves were up just over $3 billion for this fiscal year. So she has something to fall back on.
Yep.
It's just what, if anything, would she release should the federal carpet get pulled out from under her feet?
So more to come on the expense-based aids. Instructional material aids are pretty predictable. It's a per pupil allocation, and so pretty consistent there. And then you'll see the university, UPK, Universal Pre-K aid. So the governor did increase that allocation up to $10,000 per student for our district. It works out to be that. It's based right now on a database of 161 students. There's information that there could be a phase-in period, so we're not sure exactly how applicable this is. I know part of that phase-in is providing universal pre-K services to 100% of 4-year-olds as well. So we'll have to see. This would be really great news if this holds all of it. But we're going to proceed with caution on that. So that's what we have for state aid. First look. Any questions? Other questions?
Thank you very much.
And so now we're waiting so the budget came out, governor's budget, then the legislature, so then the assembly and the Senate, it could be at any time, right? It could be months away, weeks away. So now we're at a standstill.
Yes. But no, there's a lot of work. You know, there's other revenue areas in our budget. So there's a lot of things being pulled together here. But in terms of progress, we'll get little bits of information, you know, what our associations are hearing about, you know, what kind of things come about, if there's
Timeline
things are
wise,
leaning
Jen,
one way or another, but
timeline, Jen, like do we have like it's like May, like I'm just curious, like timeline, when do the school budget has to be in? So I think like the expectation would be like the state budget would be like March 31st. I'm just wondering from a school budget perspective, we would expect ideally by what date? And do we have a required legal date?
yes.
Yep.
Yes. And at the next meeting, we can bring forth the budget calendar again. That was adopted in November, I believe. So in March is when we would be going through our budget workshops, taking a look at the superintendent's initial draft budget and then going through and getting feedback from the board. Ideally, a state budget would be in place by April 1st. That makes things very nice. And then usually by early mid-April, we like to have a district adopted budget. So we can prepare for the district budget vote in May. So,
and I'm just wondering, also thinking about
April 20th, 21st is, I think, usually
21st.
I don't have the exact date with me, but it's usually when it needs to be done by.
And I'm also wondering about the engagement of like PTOs and thinking about stakeholder engagement inside the budget process ahead of time. And I'd imagine like in a more positive year, like but I think it'd be a great practice either way, right? To kind of get that feedback early.
So 8B in our discussion
gonna
items
segue.
is exactly that.
With immediate response.
So I know one of the ongoing conversations amongst the board in the budget planning process is engagement with our parent group. So one of the things that Mrs. Mulligan and I discussed was similar to the way we held our legislative open house, was the possibility of all of our parent groups holding a budget open house with the executive committees of those parent groups. We figured we would wait probably maybe another 4 to 6 weeks and see if more information comes out either from the legislature or updates from the governor, and hold an open house sharing with all of them what do we know about revenue, what do we know about anticipated expenditures, allowing them to give us some input and some feedback on the process, what they're seeing, what they might like to see included, what their concerns are, or what they're favorable on the budget. So as we start to get deep into it, once we reach the March timeline, we do have some of that feedback that we could bring back to the board as well. So again, we would do it as an open house format. Mrs. Reamer in my office would help reach out to those civic groups, invite them in, and make sure that we have a timeline that works for everyone to be able to participate in that process.
How would you structure that? I'm trying to vision what you would be doing.
Yeah, so similar to the presentations that we have given to the board, both on the revenue and the expenditure side, Mrs. Mulligan and I would partner on that to go through the budget detail to the extent practical, go through all the different revenue lines. I don't think we're going to get as granular on the expenditure side as trying to go through the entire budget book, but go through the object codes, what expenditures come from what locations, and give a high level of summary of what's detailed within those expenditures, what comes from an equipment code, a supply code, be transparent about the salary and benefits code. That's where the greatest expense lies, and probably talk a little bit about enrollment at the same time. I think those conversations are going to foster what they might want to see. Conversations about class size, we know, are always going to come up. New program, I'm sure those things would come up, but those would be embedded in some of the curriculum codes and some of the expenditure codes perhaps in instructional technology. And I think giving them a deeper look at how do we allocate in those lines and where do those expenditures come from will help guide those conversations.
So the feedback you would expect would be, obviously, when we just talked about 80+% is personnel related. What they hope to see in terms of their own building, is there anything like the PTOs and people like that?
I think it's going to be more generalized feedback. Yes, they all are going to represent buildings, but we're going to have to synthesize that data to see where the unanimous voice is.
Do our principals do that as part of their own building level budgets? They talk to their PTOs? Or things like that?
I can't speak to that. We haven't had that conversation.
Okay. Is there a principal here?
I give the PTSO updates every quarter when we meet. We don't meet as Kim used to be on. We meet only 4 times a year. The high school is not very active, and they do give me input, but they've never really requested staff. If there's an issue, there was a concern. Like this year, they've been very active in trying to support the students in Mr. Hill's class. So they take goals along those lines. But they've never, in my 8 years, have ever asked me for additional staff.
Okay, I guess it's more about feedback. I guess I'm trying to see how we can best capture this feedback, because how to incorporate something at a certain stage of the budget is challenging given the work that's going to be happening. So I guess it's like, it has to be really kind of preset. You can share the information, which we do during the board meetings and the budget workshops as well. It gets pretty granular, and all the information is on the website. I just want to make sure that people understand that they come to these meetings, that they don't get frustrated either, to have expectations of being able to provide input to, and we need X number of teachers, or we need X number of programs, or we need gifted and talented, or we need all these different things that really, SROs is one that always comes up. I'm just trying to think of the past. Just to make sure that it's framed carefully, so that when people have the ability to give feedback and have understanding of how the budget is structured and what goes into it, that they understand that financially a lot of things are already accounted for. And this planning process and this input could be things that, like the students presented today, things that could be planned 2 to 3 to 4 years down the road as part of a process of incorporating those ideas over time into what we can do to make sure that, hey, we're engaged with the community, we're engaged with PTOs. Would this, and so the other question would be, is this going to replace, like we used to present as well. So there's a feedback component and a presentation component. Is that going to go away?
I think that was part of the conversation that we had, that inviting
Okay.
people here rather than
Doing the roadshow?
getting 4 people here and 6 people
Okay.
here, invite
Okay.
everyone here for one unified conversation. And I'm going to draw kind of back on your previous comment. One of the things that has stood out to me, and I'll give accolades to our elementary principals, give credit where credit is due. When things come to me from the elementary level, I don't get a request from Janae, a request from Red Mill, a request from, I get a K-5 request.
Okay.
Their vision is very unified. It's evident that they do a lot of hard work before the information comes here to district office. Just a simple fact. And in a short time, I have a high level of confidence in our 5 principals that they're going to carry this message back to the buildings to help. It doesn't mean that when we set the table for this, when we invite our PTO groups in, that we won't do that similarly, but I have a high level of trust that they'll carry that message
Oh,
back.
so do I. I think it's a good approach. I mean, I'm just trying to understand, because there's a deviation from what we have done in the past to do individual building, because then they had individual building questions. So I think it was an opportunity to have like a, what impacted DPS, maybe different impact of Mill and Janae and Belshop. So they have some opportunity to ask questions around their specific.
But going back to your previous comment on staffing and class size, if that's 75 to 80% of the budget, when we make a reduction in one, it affects another. Where I think, and for instance, when we did our budget meetings with Jen and myself this year, we didn't do 5 different meetings. They met together in the same room, talking about, yes, their building level identity, but how does what Mr. Grignon wants to do affect what Mrs. Scalacci wants to do? And that interaction we felt was far more productive than 5 different meetings.
I just want to say, like to me, that was my favorite part about this year's like learning that all our elementaries work together to create that number. And like my thought was, like, do all of our parents know, right, that all of our buildings is considered and a part of that process? So I kind of looked at it like as 2 ways, like as just one, like a dissemination of information piece. And I do agree with Mike that the information is there. I just want to say, like, learning that was new for me. And I could just imagine being a parent, like I probably would never, know that, but it's very encouraging when you hear that that's exactly how that structure is happening. So I think information dissemination piece, and I also think of feedback gathering, because a lot of the times, like when I see like a public, concern about budget decisions, a lot of it is just how we're communicating, right? So I just look at it as an additional communication piece, and we could kind of get ahead of the feedback and kind of bring people into the process. Because when you sit at the table and you hear everything happening, it kind of makes sense to you. But if you're kind of not as close to the details, it's easier to say what's going on here.
I think the important piece to remember as a follow-up to that is, well, the small amount of discretionary funding that they do have, that's what preserves their unique identities as buildings. The thing that Belltop gets to do is different from Janae, is different from Red Mill, is different from, who did I forget? Green Meadow. Thanks. Those are the pieces that make those building cultures and those identities very unique. And those are the pieces that can foster some of those follow-up conversations. But the program that comes to us here in district office, they have worked very hard to make sure that they have a common unified K-5 vision, so that when our students get to 6th grade, the experience in Belltop is not vastly different from DPS. That there's been unique identities, yes, but those 6th graders are unilaterally prepared to move forward with their secondary experience.
I think this is a great idea. I think I would just encourage the district to give some thought to how it's staffed, and do we have like some good scribes who can really capture this content? And then I think in an ideal world, it sort of gets spit back into the blueprint, right? Like there's going to probably be some ideas that fall into a more strategic vision of year 3 or year 5 of that plan. And just, I think having people very familiar with that plan who could quickly say to parent groups and PTOs, yeah, this is great. This is part of our strategic plan. Like, how do we sort of get there to that? But then also, like, is there an expectation that we would sort of spit something back out? We've captured, even if it's high level, I feel like that might be an important component too.
Yep,
Maybe there's a participation in government group who could help with us or something like that. So
excellent. Excellent point.
You know, I'll say that I think that's a great idea. I also think giving people information, I'm on the board and I'm still learning this budget.
Yeah.
And just understanding when you see $116 million budget, to somebody learning that like, yes, 80% of that or 90% of that is spoken for, and just explaining that in a way that's not in a public forum where somebody could ask a question and not feel I'm
Mhm.
asking a stupid question.
Yeah.
Too. I just find the information is going to be helpful.
Yeah.
And Mike's point, your point about, well, what do they want to hear and what do they want from us is secondary, because,
Mhm.
you know, in the strategic plan, we could talk about that.
I just want to say too, like on the side note, it's a little cold in here.
It just got there.
Usually that's the warm side.
Mr. Harkin, Mr. Harkin, close that door behind you. Might be
And then, Dr. Coach, just one other question, like, it says, like, I understand PTOs, but it says parent groups.
So,
Last year we heard a lot from like Friends of Music. we
yeah,
heard a lot from the
music,
CTEP parents.
athletics.
Is that, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I think it's anywhere where there's an organized
Got
parent
it,
group
okay.
will send invitations.
Okay, moving on. Regularly scheduled board presentations. Yeah.
Okay. So at our last meeting, there had been a request, and again, this is me still on the learning curve as quasi new superintendent still. In the past, when the meetings had been scheduled at different buildings throughout the district, we had worked with the host building to have presentations given by that host building. So Mrs. Mahar, Ms. Mulligan and I, Mr. Mahar and I had some conversations about the history and helping me understand the history a little bit better along with the principals, but then trying to forecast and look forward to what are some of the new resources that we would have available too. And two of the ideas that one of which we had a conversation about amongst the cabinet, but I'll give credit to Mr. Garib, also made the second recommendation today. We have a resource that has never sat at the table with any of us before, and those are our student board members. So one of the thoughts that we had was if Mrs. Mulligan and I work together to identify either some key aspects of the board goals and or the strategic plan, pick 5 of those that potentially we could share with our student board members to go back to our buildings and have them work with a core population of students, either the student council or a group selected by the building principals, to be able to give a short presentation to the board on progress related to those board goals and or strategic plan items. The other piece that Mr. Garib recommended, and I actually really enjoyed this, and Mr. Panache actually highlighted this earlier today, was some of you have never set foot in some of the other buildings. Your children went to some of the other buildings. Use our student council members to potentially either 10 to 15 minutes before the board meeting, have the student council members take you through their building and teach you about their school. I know the student council members would probably love to do that with you. They could do that and partner with our student board members. Those were 2 recommendations that we had come up with. I'm glad to hear anything else that the board might want to see, but we were trying to be efficient with your time, be purposeful with what the request was asking for, and really look to engage with our student body so you could have that interaction with them during your meetings as well. So those were some initial thoughts we came up with. Glad to hear feedback, but whatever it is the board decides, we will work with our administrators and our building level teams to make sure that we plan appropriately.
I think it's a good idea, especially because my kids went to Green Meadow, right? And so Green Meadow has the I forgot what they call it, the TV thing, right?
Yep.
So you can walk around, you can learn about the TV and Belltop, you know, everyone has their thing. And 20-minute walk would be awesome.
Yeah, I think the tours were something that are always helpful to visit. Thank you for the recommendations. I think they're excellent. Always like to see student presentations. One of the things as they go through too, the capital project, I mean, we're getting capital project presentations at every meeting. So I personally don't think we need those every meeting. I think I'd like to see something once every other meeting, or, you know, when something important comes up, because I think a lot of that stuff is just rote in my mind. And then an opportunity to ask questions about capital project. I obviously can be on a discussion meeting, but I think every meeting is a little too much for me. I'd like to see those kind of be more streamlined in terms of the timing. The budget process is going to dominate the next several meetings. In terms of students, we have several students who go to career tech. We have several students at Tech Val. We have several students at STEM High School. These students have come to talk to us in the past to see what other things are happening in terms of what the district supports outside of just the K-12 that's within our district. These opportunities for CT, especially in the environment we're in right now, in terms of students who are going into those programs, into high school and apprenticeships and college programs, 2-year schools, things like that, trade programs. Be good to hear from them. Things like the enrollment projections, things like, we used to do staff and student attendance to get a feel on that. Some academic presentations on data. We're halfway through the school year pretty much, right? Hard to believe. And things like that would be helpful to intersperse as far as, what we do. And I know everyone's time is very valuable and the meetings can be lengthy, but I think that with newer board members here, I think that broad perspective of different types of topics would be very helpful. So I think that's just some ideas I had about incorporating that, and specifically, the board goals and the strategic plan blueprint updates would be very helpful over time. Again, that's a lot. Twice a month. But it's more food for thought as you plan out the year, the future years, how to best incorporate some things that are learning experiences. Like Rob said, the budget is important. There's a lot of learning happening at these meetings at the same time. And that's great. But there are a lot of other activities in the district that are happening. The program reviews are a piece that we usually get. I know Lisa's kind of doing a lot of things through her department. So just some suggestions. Conversation. It's just bringing in the history of what I've been part of over the years, and that may be helpful in terms of communicating to the outside too, about in terms of the public, and they can see these kinds of things. And again, if you're not if you're an elementary kid, parent, and you're seeing presentation about golf at the high school, you get a flavor for what's going on. And there's so much to highlight. So much to highlight.
So,
a lot of notes.
So I will put a tentative schedule for the rest of this year together for the next meeting.
Okay. I would also add, I think that there's some like strategic board topics that we talked a lot about last year that we haven't been talking about as much. Like the UBK is an example. And now if there's going to be more aid per pupil, are we thinking the same, 5 public schools, 5 community-based providers? Or is there sort of is this an opportunity to have like a philosophical shift in how we deliver that? Is the number of slots going to open up, or is it just like, so, I think it's just, we should just think about what those couple of topics are that we don't want to lose sight of, that were kind of big conversations and regular conversations last year too. But I think the building stuff is really great. It's, really nice to see. I mean, there's a lot of pride, from the teachers and the administrators when we go to their buildings. And I think, having those opportunities is really great.
Well, one thing that I think of too is like UPK, like our off-site UPK that don't offer free lunch. I know last year, the issue was like what I understood was like logistics, and that it really wasn't a free lunch, right? You need more staff, right? The way you had to prepare the food, like there was a legitimate constraint in a tough budgetary year to consider. But I think we have a relatively small population of students off-site, and I just think that if we're gonna see an increase, I think it would make sense to consider, are we offering free lunch, to, the students that we have off site too. I'd just be curious, like if we put it together, if there was room, what would that picture look like?
Not to go down the rabbit hole too far right now, the one thing just to keep in mind from the board's perspective with UPK, while we are a pass-through for UPK monies that we get from the state, universal pre-K is not overseen by the state education department. It's actually overseen by the Office of Child and Family Services. So we have to be mindful of when the board sets forward funds for certain aspects of supporting those students. We have to be careful of what money is appropriated from the general fund, because there are certain things that are not technically supposed to come from the general fund to support those programs. Food service, we'd have to really dig deep to make sure that if it's being offered, will we get the funding back on those numbers, or do we want to support that from the general fund? So we need to be careful of that. That's the only thing we need to move forward very diligently with any money that we appropriate to the program.
I'm just wondering, so like, could you just build that out a little bit more in detail? Like, I totally hear what you're saying, that there's a difference in the way that the money works. I'm just trying to understand, like, explicitly, like, you know, under ordinary circumstances, it works how, and we're saying the difference is.
So let's assume that the district didn't offer full day kindergarten, that we were still a district that only had half day kindergarten.
No.
That money that we might receive to move to full day kindergarten, while not a mandated service, is still overseen by the state education department. Any additional funding that we might receive, they're technically bona fide enrolled students in the district. General fund monies that we get, foundation aid monies that we get, can all be directed to those programs. While the school district is a conduit for money to support universal pre-K programs, we have third-party providers, we have community-based organizations that provide some of those services. Those organizations have to be checked by, even Questar BOCES has to be checked by the Office of Child and Family Services. They will come into the rooms here in the school buildings. They'll look at the furniture in the room, they'll measure the space in the room, they'll look at how many staff are in the room. That funding is a whole separate pool of money, some of which is not eligible for reimbursement and or aid.
Okay, I got it.
I think just some of the conversation last year, and we did not need to go down the UPK rabbit hole tonight, but was not necessarily that the district would do those things, but that like when we signed agreements with community-based providers, that there would be minimum standards so that there would be consistency across the program, that lunch is provided or it's not, or, you know, whatever those things are, but just so that, you know, it's,
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Because effectively we have basically everyone but 30 students, I think, right, receiving free lunch. Right?
Oh, universal free lunch. Every student is eligible.
In off-site.
In UPK?
Yes.
No, we have a food site.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think it's like 30 kids out of like, so if we got like 120 kids, excuse the numbers back at a, you know, but we have 30 that's not getting free lunch. That's kind of what I'm saying. And it's like, it's such a small number, but last year it was a tighter budget. You know, it was going to be more, there's more staff, there's more, you know, so it's like, but in a year where we're looking at a little bit more, I think, you know, free lunch for, you know, 30 population is kind of makes sense.
And it's good conversation, as you pointed out. Let's look at the contracts, let's look at the agreements, and let's see how can we level the playing field to the best of our ability.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to regular business, adoption of policy 5300 code of conduct. Any questions or comments? Motion to approve. Mike, second. RP, all those in favor? Okay. Committee reports. Human resources.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, folks, so my staffing report for this evening will focus on administration and instructional staff. The report that I gave on December 17th focused on non-instructional staff. So I changed it up a little bit. I created a chart so I could have add some more of the micro details on here that you can take a look at, so I don't have to just read it off the chart. So if there are some specific questions that you have, I'm here to answer them. We did, as you know, there were 2 major administrative positions this year, superintendent of schools and assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction. Approximately 15 positions, teaching positions were filled this year, and there's still 4 open positions, which we are still currently posting and interviewing for. As far as TAs on the backside, we did quite a bit of hiring. We filled 20 positions. There's still 2 we're working on. All of those postings have closed, and the building level principals are working on interviews. So we're getting closer and closer to filling these. Some of our areas which we are struggling, you'll notice, is science, specifically at the high school. We're keeping a lid on things there. And the posting for earth science closes tomorrow. And I do hear that there are 2 candidates finally after 9 postings with having 0. So we were getting stale for a while, so we took it down, we took a pause, and then we re-put it up. So keeping my fingers crossed for good outcome there. Also, currently, we are in middle stages of interviewing for the 2 principal elementary positions, Green Meadow and Red Mill. Sorry to see this is squad you go. Well, I guess Mr. Garrett too. So
He's not here.
It's been busy in the HR office with hiring as of late. So if there's any specific questions that you may have or focus, I'm here to answer them tonight.
Marty, in the area of science, are you seeing any, like, have you had a chance to talk to some of your peers in other schools and districts? Are you seeing, are there any flexibilities like that we can take advantage of gray areas, so to speak, in terms of filling science positions, waivers of certification, things like that are, qualified people with science backgrounds who may necessarily have teacher certification and things like that. And are your peers having the same issues across?
Yes, and that became very glaring to me when Dr. Coates asked me to fill out a survey from State Ed, and some of the questions they were asking. We're struggling in a lot of the same areas as our neighboring districts and throughout New York State. Secondary education, specifically in the math and science fields, family and consumer sciences, business, those are all areas which are struggles right now to find staffing. Special education as well. We're pulling through. We're getting what we need. Right now, our focus is primarily at the science. We just had another retirement just on the 23rd of January last week. We kind of got a little lucky. We had a student teacher that started this year, and she got her certification, and she loved it there. And we interviewed her, and she's there having a great time, earning a paycheck. So right now, our focus is to try and reach out to colleges, which I've been doing in conjunction with Lisa. And at this point, we've reached out to 5 different colleges: SUNY, Siena, Russell Sage, thank you, and Plattsburgh. So some of those said that they don't have any students currently enrolled in some of their programs. Some said we only have 1 or 2. Some, and they were even telling us where the students were located. Well, we have one physics down in Hudson. So they said, it's funny, you're like the 3rd district that's reached out to us asking first. So we're not the only ones thinking out of the box, trying to do what we need to do to get staffing. It's prevalent that it's widespread.
And one of the legislative proposals and the governor's budget proposal too really focuses around teacher recruitment. It's obvious the crisis is here. It's real. To the second part of your question about waivers, there have been the ability to onboard student teachers early and allow them to get credit for their student teaching while they're actually in service. There's been a lot of work to try to transition certificates from out of state. Problem is we're all stealing now from the same bank. There's just lack of interest in the field.
Right now, we're still filling like the student needs, right? Every child that wants to take biology, physics, and earth science can, right? You fill them up, right? Retired.
One area when I was at Questar, and Sunny knows this, is we offered opportunities for teaching assistants to go back to school and pay for it. And to pursue
doing it right now.
Great. Get that kind of momentum going in terms of different disciplines.
So we have a couple of strategies. Lisa and I have been talking to some of our newer staff. For example, our new hire that the high school in science has for biology. but she has started also a dual certification in physics. So she still has a few more courses to work towards to get that. So we did reach out with SUNY Albany about her being able to get some credit for doing her student teaching or whatever coursework she has to do to get that certification. We also have in the hopper an earth science student that did a student teaching with Rob West, and she's only in her second year, so she has her final year next year. And when we reached out to her college, they said that she could finish her student teaching, get paid at the same time, and get her credits for it. So that's down the road in the future. So we're hoping for some more connections and avenues to work with in our partner colleges.
I'd also like to publicly thank our EGTA. There's been more of an openness to take student teachers. As you saw at the last board resolution, the number of student teachers that were on there to be accepted, it's a direct pipeline to try to recruit and retain good people in the district. And there's been more openness of our faculty to take more student teachers.
And I want to also mention, Dr. Coates, that the teachers are doing something right because they're coming in and they're signing up to be substitutes. So they must be enjoying their experience. They love the building. Yes, so we're all in this together and it's working. So
Mike and Marty, can you say a little bit more about this Questar program? So if you're a teacher's assistant, you can, Questar will pay for your.
No, there was,
certification, or-
when I was there, the need for special education teachers was really high. And there was a program with UAlbany to get some initial credits towards, college credits. It was a mentor program. It was reimbursed. And it kind of got a pathway for both CTE and teaching assistants to work towards teacher certification over time. That's their in-house program in a partnership with UAlbany.
we're encouraging that, and I'm proud to say that we do have a TA, that Belltop, that's finishing up her final year next school year. And she came to me and said she would have to take a leave to do it, but then found another avenue to take the courses online, so she can still continue to work. So we're trying to grow our own. We're trying to produce our own pipeline. It's a little slow going at the moment, but we're very encouraged when we hear of some of our own employees that are aspiring to move in.
It's a nice report. Thank
Quick
you.
question. I was gonna say, like, I
This is
really
great, yeah.
enjoyed the information and how many times the items post. I think we should post this to board docs. I would love to get
Yeah.
this all the time when it comes to, this is actually information.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this.
And they're all 1.0 positions, right? FTEs.
Which ones?
All 1.0 FTE positions.
Except for one of them on the back, which is teaching assistant. And two of those that you.
So there's the SEO.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that concludes my report.
Thank you for your work, Marty.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, curriculum and instruction.
I have just a brief, we have approved, or tonight we will be approving our 8th mentor. We just hired for the science position, the person that resigned. We just hired a person who has actually went through student teaching here at Columbia High School. Loved East Greenbush, fell in love, as anyone that comes to East Greenbush will. So we just approved, and that will be tonight actually approving our 8th mentor-mentee pairing, and we're excited about that. So we had our mentor steering committee that made that decision collectively. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, business and community partnerships and health and safety.
Great. So on January 15th, Ms. Phillips, Mr. Marcioni, and I were able to have a small subcommittee meeting of just trying to understand first some of the background of where our business and community partnerships committee had focused their efforts. And in our initial conversation, one of the things that we honed in on was, where is this leading for us, and where are we trying to have the most impact, which led us to really thinking about the internships that once existed at Columbia High School. So I had been fortunate enough to have a very early meeting when I first onboarded with Jim Church, who had been originally part of the Business and Community Partnership Committee with Mr. Simons in the district previously. So we had an opportunity to invite him in to talk about Questar's partnership, about potentially where we could reignite that partnership and what that might look like if we wanted to revisit an internship opportunity for our students at Columbia, how they may be able to assist us, where they can help us to make connections to our business community, and how we might be able to focus those efforts. He did share with us some of the work that he has done specifically and recently with some of the major industries that exist in the Capital District. He also described for us how his role focuses within Questar, and specifically how much of a role he can play and how little of a role he can play, from as minimal as just helping make connections to the outside industry to being a central person to help coordinate those internships if that's a road that we wanted to go down again. I felt like the conversation was very valuable. I think the next steps that we wanted to take from there was now to transition to meet with Mr. Harkin and a small committee from the high school of his selection to talk about what the potential next steps might be. Again, felt like it was very positive conversation, and again, put a light on some of the things that were positive that were happening in the past and really look to reignite those opportunities. So I don't know if I stole all of the conversation.
That's a great summary. I mean, I think that I was on the Business Advisory Partnerships Committee last year. We didn't meet. And then Rob sort of like asked us some really great questions about how to re-engage it. So I think there's an internship track. We've also talked a lot, especially in the blueprint, just about really like finding that connectivity between our communities and the district, and even like from helping them understand the budget process or understand their criticality, and helping us just, be good sort of spokespersons for the things we're doing at the district. So I think starting with internships is a great first step, because there's some support there. And then, we hope it can evolve into some other ways to connect with the business community as well.
I'm glad you said that, like a first step, because first thing I started thinking was like a strategy roadmap. So
Yeah.
I feel like just like we have like for the district wide, like we have strategy, we have plans. I look at like every individual function. The idea is, where are we going? How do we build out and create a self-moving machine? Because business is so integral, right? Our communities
Yep.
is so integral to where we're going. Because a lot of it's like, I also think like when I think internships, I think entrepreneurship,
Yep.
right? I think expansion of services, right? And it's like, but you gotta feed the elephant one bite at a time.
Absolutely. I think, and Jesse, I think it aligns with a lot of the questions that you've been raising just about technology and AI and how do we stay cutting edge and all of those things. So I think we want to like leverage the infrastructure and kind of take it in some manageable pieces. But even, I think the fact that there's, this trouble in recruiting a business teacher, not that this, the business community can't supplant that, but is there an opportunity there where there is a teacher, but also, great guest lecturing and some other things? How do we, maybe some opportunities, and obviously we'll have to, work with teachers and the union and really have those conversations, but some interesting things we could talk through.
So this was we had past internship programs at the high school. You said we're trying to reignite.
Yeah, so
that.
we did have
Are
an
there
intern
any currently, or?
pre-COVID. We had an internship program that teacher has since left the district. The one that helped coordinate the internship program. Obviously, COVID stymied all of that, for lack of a better way to say it. And we're now looking for, is there a possibility and an avenue to revisit that and reignite that? Because if you look at what's coming with Board of the Graduate, changing graduation requirements, conversations with Mr. Harkin, when we look at the profile of what our graduates are doing, those pursuing higher education, it's shifting. Not in a negative way. They're finding their avenue in the workforce, in the trades, in the military, wherever the case may be. Those interests are changing because of the premium of higher education. Shift over to health and safety. So we had a health and safety committee meeting last night. The board may remember that earlier this year, and it was actually mid-August, we got an advisory memo from the state education department that there had been a new adoption of a cardiac arrest requirement law that we essentially had to make a decision on in 2-3 short weeks to be able to adopt something. So we had moved very quickly with Dr. Albert, Mr. Tooker, and we had adopted the American Heart Association regulations that Dr. Albert said certainly met the spirit and the purpose of the law. But we had the opportunity last night for the first time for the Health and Safety Committee to fully review the law, the language of the law, and then look at some of the other options that are out there for opportunities to train our staff for what we're asking them to be responsible for. So we spent about a half hour last night looking at all of the other options, and there is a component of one of the trainings referred to as Project Adam, which does incorporate a lot of the regulations of the American Heart Association. However, it's in a user-friendly format. They actually have a drop-down menu within Project Adam that says Heart Safe for Schools. They have slide decks for trainings, they have flow sheets, they have check sheets. So the committee had made a motion last night for us to go back and speak with our labor units just to review it together, speak with all the building principals to make sure that they were comfortable, and then perhaps come back around with Mr. Tooker and I to take some of that documentation, format it for our school district, then bring it back for the beginning of the new school year for the board to readopt the safety plan to include now Project Adam to be a part of our component of meeting the requirements of DESHA's law. We also discussed last night the fact that the capital improvement project is moving forward with the repair of the sanitary line at Red Mill. We know that had been a serious issue. Now that the board had taken action to include that in the project, contracts are being signed. I know I'm going to jinx it. I'm going to bring it up again. Some of the temporary repairs that we made have been working, but we know that we have to move forward with a permanent repair there.
I have a quick comment just on health and safety. And I know like SROs have been like valued in our district. And I just wanted to just say like I really appreciate like our partnership with all our local police agencies. Like I love when I see Columbia police trailing the school bus, right? It's always comforting to see, you know, when they're at like the entrances at you know, in the morning time. I just really appreciate that, you know, as part of our school culture. Like it's always comforting to me. Like I send my son off and you know, and I just know it. And in truth, it's a staff. I'm encouraged by staff too. Like just that we have such a presence. We have so many people there, like corralling around. And what I'm trying to say is that as much as I also like the idea of SROs, I love our partnerships, and I think doing it at a good financial footprint. But yeah.
So I'll go out of order since Mr. Temple brought that up on our agenda from our health and safety meeting. That was one of the items that we did discuss. We talked about our legislative open house. We talked about the fact that we invited our elected officials in. They met directly with our SROs, both from East Greenbush and from Rensselaer County. We talked about the desire of the district to expand if funding ever became available, but we also talked about the value of that partnership so that when things come up in the middle of the night, when a principal or a superintendent gets a phone call in the middle of the night, those SROs are taking our calls so that when that child or that group of students comes through the door first thing in the morning, that they're prepared. They know that partnership is invaluable because that school to home connection, when sometimes we don't have the ability to go do home visits, and our law enforcement agencies from a health and safety perspective will go knock on a door and say, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, we just want to make sure everything's okay. That helps bridge the gap. That helps those students to overcome whatever that trauma is, whatever has happened in their life, for them to be able to navigate through their school days. So I think it was well received. Senator Ashby certainly highlighted safety in this conversation with the legislative open house. I know the county executive did as well in the post that he made. So I was glad that we had put it on their radar, and we did discuss it at our meeting last night. The last piece that we discussed is there is some change to requirements for our nurses and administration of what is still considered to be an over-the-counter medication. Now, our nurses have always had a protocol to address Tylenol, Advil, anything that they really should have a standing order either from Dr. Albert or from an attending physician. But the regulations have become more scrutinous to things like medications for cuts and scrapes, antiseptic if a child has a piercing, anything topical, Vaseline if a child has chapped lips. That no longer is a standing order from our district physician permissible. That if our nurse is going to deliver any of those medications, that they need to have an order or a standing order from that child's attending physician. This is a major shift for our nurses, especially at the younger level. If a young child walks in, why did I use 6 or 7? A 7 or an 8-year-old walking into a nurse's office at the elementary level that has chapped lips, and a poor nurse can no longer give that to them because a parent just didn't send that in. We cannot put our nurses in a compromising position because this is coming from national board for them that they cannot any longer do
It's
this.
their board. It's from the nurses, whatever.
It's coming from the nursing board.
Nursing board that came down to say that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just curious, like, so thinking about nurses can't provide it, but convenience stores can sell it. Like, I'm just wondering, like if we had a store at the school, I'm not trying to, but I'm just.
So believe it or not, we talked about exactly this. While nurses have licenses and they can no longer administer, can I go down to Mrs. Mulligan's room because she has a jar of Vaseline on her desk and get it? She's a classroom teacher.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be supporting that.
It's not the
because
spirit, yeah.
It's not the spirit of what they're doing, but the new regulations, and I shouldn't say they're new, they're in place now for about 18 months and we're just getting caught up. It's very clear that our nurses are no longer allowed to do this.
Okay, totally hear the nurses. And the only thing I'm thinking of is thinking in the inclusive side, right? Like what I'm trying to say is that like some kids have needs sometimes that like sitting at the board table we can't see, right? And I'm just worried that needs unmet, right? If we're too inflexible, and I don't know where that line should be or not be, but I just want to see that. And I know our administrators just thinking, but that's just where we're. Yeah.
So we actually have a team meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning with our nurses to talk about exactly how do we deal with this.
You can't put antiseptic on it. You gotta put a Band-Aid on it.
You're not treating.
And some of it is going to be soap and water instead of antiseptic.
Oh. And then you got angry parents. That's crazy. But okay. Rules are rules, right? I mean, you gotta follow the rules.
And that's the piece that we're going to have to work on is our messaging and our communication. And this has put our nurses in a very hard place at all levels, because if you talk about our secondary students, forgive me, how many of them got their ears pierced? How many of them have a cut or a scrape that they're coming and they're looking for help? And then now the nurse is going to say, go in and wash it out.
But what I'm hearing is that we're going to protect everyone. We're going to protect our nurses. We're going to protect our
students,
and figuring out our path forward.
And we want to collaborate on how do we best do this.
Yeah.
So that was the last topic of conversation for last night at the health and safety meeting.
Before we leave the committee reports last week, I think Lucy mentioned literacy of the finance course. I was listening to a financial podcast, and one of the guests was someone who started a next gen personal finance. And look it up. They're a group that has been involved in many states in the country in terms of supporting legislation which they develop. They have curriculum about personal finance and literacy for students. It's enough about next gen personal finance. I thought I'd pass that on as something because I think it's looked a little bit of hearing the podcast. A lot of the it aligns with a lot of what the expectations are, and it does standalone also be embedded. Yeah. Just a resource I think
they got an arcade game too.
Next gen is pretty cool. Yeah, and they're like most states in the country never have the requirement.
I guess
Before we leave the committee reports, I want to mention the internship. So I'm not familiar with what the internship opportunities look like. But thinking of whether these are for all students or for students in higher courses, where's the district with work-based learning and incorporating service learning opportunities too? So when we're looking at internships, that it crosses all the different groups of students that we serve, to just keep that in mind when we're looking at that.
And to just add one more layer to that, to what extent do we want this simply to be exposure to life beyond the P12 setting, or do we want this to be credit bearing?
Yeah.
You know, there are things that we really have to move forward with great diligence on, because it's one thing to say it's after school hours, go engage in your internship, and we're going to help make that connection, versus we're going to develop a credit bearing internship that develops soft skills, resume writing, financial literacy, whatever the case may be. Then we also have to take that one step further if that's the route that we go, and you get to the nuance that you have a student athlete. Is this something that we have to have approved with the NCAA clearinghouse that they would accept as a course for credit?
What did they have before 2020? Was it just
So in my previous district, I actually wrote a course that the NCAA clearinghouse approved as part of a business internship course. So it is a possibility to do it. It's a lot of work. It has to be very structured, but it is a possibility. And we just have to decide, if we reignite this, what direction do we want to go, and how do we capture all student populations?
It also brings in a supervisory responsibility, right? Someone's going to have to be on these sites and make these connections.
And is that a partnership with BOCES that best serves us, or do we look to a deeper partnership with our faculty or guidance team? There's a lot to be worked out.
Does state ed need to approve a course like that when it's for credit? Or
No. We have the autonomy for credit offerings because it's an elective-based credit. It wouldn't be something that would have a regents exam associated with it.
Do you need to gauge student interest in a credit bearing elected internship opportunity before you determine whether or not
It helps. It helps because if we're going to put a lot of effort behind it, is there going to be student interest?
like to determine whether or not you could get credit or not? Like, are there other districts that have that opportunity for students currently that you can take a class? Like
In
an
this area,
internship?
I'd have to do more research to find out.
were ours credit bearing in the past?
The entrepreneurship one? Yes, it was actually through Hudson Valley. And I do see, and Dr. Coates has been talking a lot about this, and just to keep it brief, I see this as being opportunities for a standalone course potentially, because that track would be different for that student, maybe credit bearing. And then I also see it as an opportunity to be embedded, where we can have capstone projects, or we can have work-based learning, service projects. There's so many opportunities to partner with businesses, and that is a way to capture in many areas, not just in, you just can go the entrepreneurship route, that it opens it up to everyone.
It can be developmental, starting with
Yes.
service learning in the elementary and moving forward as
Exactly.
they grow, they have more opportunities.
Yeah.
I really love that idea too, Cindy. Like one thing I always think about too is like our students who, like sometimes students who what do I want to say? That it's harder to pick up on the academic side, right? Like the truth is like sometimes I find like experiencing something and then going back and learning is more beneficial sometimes than learning it the first time, because it's hard to make sense of it when you don't know how it works in real life. So I also think about like how do we I'm not really I'm just trying to create conversation, right? Around, how do we see it, right? If math don't work this way, right? Maybe actually building a rocket sometimes, right, is better than teaching physics, for example. And I don't mean better, but I mean like they complement each other. And if you get the one, you incidentally get the other. And no matter which way you go, right, you still could come back and, that's kind of just what I'm thinking, like how to use it like as a leverage tool to just find out, like, are our kids, great programmer? Are they? And I know we have a great like gaming, I saw at the art show, like we have gaming and stuff happening, but I'm just wondering, how do we find out if kids pick stuff up a different way?
We just had, just to say one more thing, put a plug in for U Albany and Jim Church, Questar, gave me a connection with U Albany's Makerspace on the Move. And they came to Janae, and they're going to be going to all of our elementary schools. And they had a circuit day, and they went to 4 stations. And in 4th grade, I tried to make it intentional because in 4th grade, they do a lot on electricity. And so a lot of them had opportunities, let's say, for example, to build a parallel circuit. Yeah. Now, once they go and they bring that lesson to the, sit and listen and learn about it, they're going to say, oh, yeah, I remember when we did that. So, yeah, those hands-on opportunities have been great.
Okay, moving on, tabled motions. None. Old business. All right, consent agenda. Any questions or comments?
I just had a comment about the, just about the special education report. There's some preschool recommendations for services, and I'm just wondering if we've looked at, collaborating with Capital District Beginnings or ECA to have a dual role in the UPK to see if there's some opportunities for growth there so that we're not, it's hard to get early childhood services, right? So to have these organizations in, if we've ever looked at that.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think we're very fortunate where we are geographically. We only had one approved site in the whole county. I think Gardner, I think it's a great job of connections locally, but I do think there is that opportunity. My understanding is there is one site at Epic that's a joint UPK integrated classroom, but I think that there's certainly more options to expand. We did just hear Spotted Zebra in particular is opening 8 new integrated classes. I think that will really help the region, but certainly if we took an increased responsibility, we find students to build that program. So definitely a future goal, I think.
I'm just curious, like, just for us novice, like, because I'm not like an expert on like what just got said.
Me neither. I want to know what you meant. Like, are you?
So early childhood education services are
Yes.
outside, they're run by the district, but the services are county provided and there aren't county providers. So if we can have a collaborative UPK where those providers are pushing into existing UPKs, it gives you some flexibility to get the services in the district because it's really hard to connect the families with the district.
Not only is that the kid is in the UPK program, then I don't know if these kids with special needs, do kids with special needs have preferential like position to give one of the 161 spaces?
No, because sometimes they will elect to go to a parentally placed location, and even then they can still advocate for CPSE services.
Some of what I was wondering on the consent agenda is when they're in our programs now, those needs arise, right?
Okay.
So they've been through the identification process. So now they're newly identified and they need services and they're in our program.
All right.
So how do we meet their needs is kind of what I assumed was happening, but they could be.
Yeah, I think actually the bigger area of need is the evaluation process. That is where we get stuck, particularly given time of year, especially in regards to social emotional evaluations at the preschool level. So I think if there was an area to expand, it would likely be the evaluations first and then programming secondary.
Because I think I recall, I think Helen, you were very helpful in terms of the process for UPK. That was one of the partnerships we put together with ECAC was to have that, and they were really partners and still are. And then, expanding that process if we can at some point would be wonderful.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, motion to approve. Robert, second, RP, all those in favor?
Quick comment, I just want glad to see Brittany Harris is going to take over this was. That's going to be a great partnership and team, and congratulations to our latest retirees. I know John John's wife Sharon is retired. He'll be probably happy. John was a board member for many, many years. So that's great.
When does Sharon, she's done at the end of the year or she's already done?
End of the year.
That's what I thought. I thought, okay, yeah.
Got her notice in, right? Big loss because the med program is instrumental in that part. So.
Bus drivers.
Yeah, there you go.
Melody's been tracking that probably.
Okay, any new business? Second public forum? No? Board forum? Start.
All set.
Thank you.
Just a couple of things. Thank you for the conversation. I thought it was a really, really good board meeting in terms of from the start to finish. And hearing from the students, great to conversation about the board topics and different information. So very rich and thank you. It was very well. The second thing is just want to thank the facility staff. Great job with the snowstorm, obviously mountains of snow out there.
Yes.
And I'm sure they worked tirelessly. And the administration and folks who are involved in terms of making those calls and getting things rolling and making the delay. Closing was probably an easy one, right? Those are always things that provide some angst to parents until they hear the official word, right? But kudos to the team. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks.
I saw Paul Bickle in the front loader. I just wanted to as a front loader, but I was impressed too. That's all.
I'm sorry, just one more point about the legislative breakfast with the SROs. The other thing that, Dr. Coates talked about, they're more than just a safety officer. I really didn't know that either. They, Officer J, he says, I'm Officer J, and he explained how he walks out, he talks to all the kids. They all communicate with him. It's not just, I'm here, I'm the disciplinarian, I'm in charge, I'm first safety. He gets to know them. And I know that everyone else does that, but he was talking about it. I thought it was really, great to hear how invested the SROs are in the community. I think it's a great program.
And not to take the conversation, but also with our staff, our adults go through unfortunate circumstances sometimes, and to have a resource to be able to walk in to say, can I have a private conversation for a minute? It's regular for our SROs to give them advice to say, I can help you with, you need to seek other help with. They're that resource for everyone in the building.
I'd like to recommend Ed Foundation Gala. I saw it was announced.
Yes, Ed found the date. I'm
The
gonna blank
18th,
on-
I believe? No, wait,
No,
that's
it's-
sports. That's the
no,
gala.
it's April
24th.
24th. Does that sound right?
I was in April.
It's April this year.
I should have told everybody.
It's a great event. It's very deserving.
Yes.
Alumni and committee members.
24th. And we do need executive session tonight to discuss collective bargaining negotiations. So motion to move. Mike, second. Sam, all those in favor?
Good night, everybody.
Nice.